Humans have eaten almost everything nature has to offer: deer, rabbits, fish, birds, insects in many cultures, even the occasional unusual delicacy most people would rather not think about. But across nearly every culture on every continent, one entire category of animal is almost universally missing from the traditional human diet: predators, wolves, big cats, bears, eagles. Species capable of killing prey far larger than themselves rarely, if ever, appear on any traditional human menu anywhere in the world. This isn't a coincidence, and it isn't simply about taste. So here's the real question: why did humans, across cultures that never had any contact with each other, all independently arrive at the same unspoken rule? Don't eat the predators? The energy math of meat. Part of the answer starts with basic ecology. Every time energy moves up a food chain, from plant to herbivore to predator, roughly 90% of it is lost along the way, spent on the animal's own movement, growth, and metabolism rather than stored as usable meat. A deer converts sunlight-grown plants into meat relatively efficiently. A wolf that eats several deer over its lifetime converts only a small fraction of that original energy into its own body mass. In practical terms, hunting a single deer feeds a family for days. Hunting a wolf, which required an entire population of deer just to stay alive, delivers a small amount of lean meat for an enormous amount of risk and effort. Ecologically, predators were almost always a worse investment of hunting effort than the animals they themselves were hunting. This same energy math explains why large predators are naturally rare in every ecosystem on Earth, while the herbivores beneath them exist in far greater numbers. There simply isn't enough usable energy at the top of the pyramid to support many top predators at all, which made them a scarce, unreliable food source even when hunters were willing to try. Tougher, leaner, and less rewarding. Beyond the math, predator meat is also, quite simply, less appealing to eat. Carnivores build lean, dense muscle suited for short bursts of speed and sustained stamina, not the kind of marbled fat herbivores store for seasonal survival. That difference shows up directly on the plate: tougher texture, a strong, often unpleasant gamey flavor, and very little of the fat that historically made meat calorie-dense and satisfying. For hunter-gatherers counting every calorie, a lean, tough, strong-tasting piece of meat was a poor reward for a genuinely dangerous hunt. Early hunters who did occasionally try predator meat likely found the experience memorable for the wrong reasons, reinforcing meal after meal, generation after generation, that easier and tastier options were almost always available elsewhere. Before we continue, if this kind of question is the kind of thing you enjoy thinking about, consider subscribing and sharing this with someone who'd find it interesting too. Now let's keep going. The poison concentrating upward. There's also a hidden danger built into the position predators occupy in the food chain. Environmental toxins and heavy metals don't disappear as they move through an ecosystem. They accumulate, a process called biomagnification. A small amount of toxin absorbed by a plant becomes a slightly larger concentration in the herbivore that eats many plants, and a much larger concentration in the predator that eats many herbivores over its lifetime. By the time you reach the top of the food chain, an animal's tissue can carry toxin levels many times higher than anything found lower down. Eating predator meat regularly meant eating a concentrated version of whatever contamination existed anywhere beneath it in the local ecosystem. Modern research analyzing tissue samples from top predators like polar bears and sharks has repeatedly confirmed dramatically higher concentrations of mercury and other industrial pollutants compared to the herbivores and smaller fish beneath them in the same ecosystem, a pattern that likely existed in some form even before industrial pollution began. The parasite problem. Predators also carry a significantly higher parasite and pathogen load than the animals they hunt. Trichinella, a parasitic roundworm responsible for a serious illness called trichinosis, is a well-documented risk, specifically in bear meat and other wild carnivore meat, far more so than in typical herbivore game. Because predators eat other animals, including ones that were already sick, injured, or infected, whatever pathogens existed in their prey often survived and accumulated inside the predator itself. A single meal of undercooked carnivore meat could deliver a far higher infectious risk than an equivalent meal of deer or rabbit, a pattern early humans likely learned the hard way long before anyone understood parasites existed at all. Similar risks have been documented in other wild carnivore meats around the world, reinforcing that this wasn't an isolated concern tied to one species, but a broader pattern tied to an animal's position in the food chain itself. The polar bear liver case. One case makes this danger vividly clear. Arctic explorers over multiple documented expeditions discovered that eating polar bear liver could cause severe, sometimes fatal poisoning. The cause turned out to be an almost unbelievable concentration of vitamin A, stored specifically in the liver of a top Arctic predator that had spent its life eating vitamin A-rich seals. A single serving of polar bear liver can contain enough vitamin A to poison an adult human, causing headaches, skin peeling, and in severe cases, death. Indigenous Arctic peoples, through generations of hard-earned experience, knew to avoid the liver specifically, passing that exact warning down long before anyone could explain the biochemistry behind it. This wasn't an isolated incident either. Historical records document the same poisoning pattern among multiple separate expeditions across different decades, all independently learning, sometimes fatally, the same lesson that local Arctic communities already knew. Taboos that encoded knowledge. This pattern repeats across cultures with no historical contact with one another. Many religious and cultural dietary codes, including kosher and halal traditions, specifically exclude carnivorous and scavenging animals from what's considered acceptable to eat. Anthropologists studying these independent parallel taboos suspect they weren't arbitrary rules at all, but practical survival knowledge encoded into religious and cultural law long before anyone had the scientific vocabulary to explain biomagnification, parasite load, or vitamin toxicity. A taboo in this light functioned as a kind of inherited safety warning, passed down reliably across generations, even when the underlying reason had long been forgotten. Similar exclusions appear in numerous other traditional food systems around the world, from parts of East Asia to indigenous communities across the Americas, each arriving at comparable restrictions around carnivorous and scavenging animals through entirely separate cultural histories. The rule nobody had to teach. So why don't humans eat predator meat? Not because of squeamishness and not by accident. It's a pattern written by ecological math, concentrated toxins, dangerous parasites, and centuries of accumulated hard-won experience, quietly encoded into taboos long before science could explain any of the reasons behind them. Across cultures that never once spoke to each other, humanity arrived at exactly the same unspoken rule again and again. Sometimes the oldest wisdom isn't the one we can explain, it's simply the one that kept working, not to give you answers, to reveal the paradox. Every question has a story. Welcome to Human Mystery.